Hey, good afternoon, y'all. Thanks for joining here for Brandwoven's webinar on Prime Day prep and strategy. So excited to spend between a half an hour and 45 minutes with you today, chatting about what this means for us in kind of a unique year and kind of the changes that are coming to Prime Day for 2025. As we get started here, I'll introduce myself and Joel Ennis. We'll both be chatting with you today. My name's Chris Gray. I'm the CEO of Brandwoven and have been in the consumer product space for the better part of 18 years now. Most of that time working with premium brands on both e-commerce, big box, a little bit of everything in between. This will be my seventh or eighth time or year going through this, and excited to talk to you a little bit about it. I'll turn it over to Joel for a brief introduction as we get started as well.
Hello, everyone. Joel Ennis, VP of Marketing here at Brandwoven. I've been in the e-commerce space for about 20 years, the last 15 of which has been dealing with large premium brands. 7 of those years were internally at Amazon, helping to build out their ad business. Worked originally on the precursor of what became sponsored products, and saw the rise of AMS, now sponsored ads, and Amazon DSP over that time period. Since then, the last 7 years have been on the agency side of things, working with brands to leverage those tools and get the maximum amount of value out of them. So excited to speak with you all today and dig into Prime Day strategy and prep.
Awesome. And as we get started today, just wanted to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about Brandwoven. If you're not familiar with us, we are a marketplace management agency. A lot of our business is Amazon, but we also do Walmart, Target, Instacart, and a few others. We are not a huge team. We have right about 35 of us, and we manage somewhere in the neighborhood of 175 to 200 million in just Amazon sales per year. So I like to say we're big enough to be relevant and have lots of technology and things to help our brands manage, but we're not so big that we can't customize solutions for the brands that we're working with. So that's just a tad bit about us. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about Brandwoven or our services. There's a link at the end of the presentation here. Before we completely jump in, just wanted to go over kind of the framework for the webinar today. We do have all the participants muted with cameras off. That's just for the sake of not having background noise and things. If you do have a question, feel free to interrupt. There's a Q&A button at the top of your browser there. Feel free to click it, type it in. If I don't see it or Joel doesn't see it as we're going through, we'll be sure to circle back at the end of the presentation. We will dive in now. So what we're going to talk about today, talk just about expectations and changes for Prime Day, like what's happening, how are we approaching it, how are we approaching it differently in 2025 as an agency, as opposed to in the past. And then we'll really dig into specifics around Prime Day preparation, from logistics and catalog, promotional planning and strategy, and then a good portion of the time, Joel will dive into what is probably the most important part of Prime Day strategy around marketing, planning, and execution. So, diving in here, wanted to start at the very high level. Tangible things that we need to know about Prime Day are dates and information. So feel free to screenshot this. We'll also put this out on a video if you want to pause it. But important dates to note, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the big ones: May 6th, Prime exclusive discount submissions open. And then deal scheduling for best deals and lightning deals actually closes May 23rd. So that's likely 2 months ahead of the event. But those are big dates to know, just that you can start your planning now. But ultimately, best deals, lightning deals, we're a little more than a month away from those deals closing. Other really important dates, we're shipping product into FBA if you're a Seller Central brand, well in advance of the event. So the Amazon has stated that the last receipt date that they would like to see for product to be available for Prime Day is June 9th. I would back up 2 to 3 weeks from that and try to have your product in early, just to make sure, as there is congestion at the DCs around that time. Super, super important, especially if you're planning deals, planning that inventory. Certainly don't want to end up late and then end up overstocked after the event. So historically, around June 25th, it was actually on June 25th last year, dates will be announced for Prime Day. It's usually a little bit less than a month in advance of the actual event. So just kind of keep your ears to the ground around there. We'll certainly be, announcing it on social and things as well. And then Joel will get into this a little bit more, but around the 4th of July, you really want marketing strategy and changes set. And of course, that's assuming that the event is that second or third week of July. Also, right before the event starts, make sure you're putting it on your calendars to audit PDPs. Look and make sure that the interface for the consumer is looking good. Things do tend to change leading up to Prime Day or any real big tentpole event. So always good to keep eyes out and make sure that it's looking pretty before you make the big investment in marketing for the event itself. So. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it is there, but what are my kind of thoughts on Prime Day? I thought it'd be good to spend a few minutes on this. There's kind of three trends, I guess, that are worth talking about. And the first one, maybe not a trend, but just a reality, is that we are looking at our first 4-day Prime Day in 2025. So, the event started at 1 day, moved to 2, now to 4. I mean, that's in lockstep with what we've seen in, the Turkey 5 event that became T11, that became T12 or whatever it was here this last year. So events are getting longer. How does this impact us as, either sellers or brands or in our case, as agencies helping a lot of different brands? I think, and I can't be sure, but I'm fairly confident that what we're going to see is more of July's sales, regardless of whether it is on promo or not, be kind of sucked into the Prime Day sales window. So it is essentially going to be more important than ever to participate, or you're going to risk losing an even larger portion of the market share for your monthly sales. So margins are going to be thinner. I'm going to try not to talk too much about tariffs in this call, but there is a reality that margins might be thinner, and that could play into people's participation and depth of promotion. But historically, what we've seen is this other trend, which is more participants each year. It has become almost a must-do event, but it's also become increasingly crowded. So as you're thinking about how to approach it, what strategies are we going to employ, we really have to think about how are we differentiating ourselves, because being on promo is just like everybody else. So driving that traffic is expensive during that time, but obviously there's also a huge audience. So considering more participants each year, we should expect that to continue to grow, especially as the event is extended to 4 days. So the other kind of universal truth that has been the case for many years is increased cost of marketing around Prime Day and in Prime Day. So something to consider, especially given the actual cost of goods and pricing, where that might be come mid-year. It's going to be a little bit less predictable this year because there's external factors around cost of goods that we don't know how it'll shake out. But I think we should assume and we should plan for an increased cost of marketing, which also means an increased cost of potential promotion based on both changes Amazon is making and the depth of promotion that we've seen increase year over year as well. So just keep an eye out for that. I guess that is maybe sounds a little bit negative, and I guess I do pose the question: is Prime Day a necessary evil? We hear that a lot from brands where, hey, I'm spending a ton of money, margins are super thin. Where does that leave Prime Day as an actual advantage for me, or is it just something I have to participate in to be competitive in July and really for the 3 weeks leading up and the 3 weeks leading out? And I think for some brands, truthfully, it is. It's something that has to be done, that Amazon has done a good job of leveraging their audience to look for. And so we're discounting product that might have sold anyways if we didn't have the event. That said, it presents tremendous opportunity for brands that have high repeat purchase frequency or high repeat purchase behavior, because you do have a monstrous audience to go get and capture and really bring into your brand. So consumables, I think it definitely tailors itself to more consumable product versus durable goods, which we do about half CPG, more repeat purchase, about half sports and outdoor, where Prime Day, I guess I would classify as more of a necessary evil in some cases. This is kind of a really typical graph that I just put up of a brand through Prime Day, where you have this kind of like steady decline for the 3 or 4 weeks leading up to the event as people quit purchasing in anticipation of deals. Huge spike in sales for Prime Day that you can see, and then a lead out that is actually less than, let's say, what May or early June sales might have been. So the impact of the event goes well beyond the now 4 days. And really does impact almost 2 full months of sales, and just concentrates a huge portion of those sales in a fairly short window. So, continuing on this theme, I think something to be thinking about as you're planning promotions, especially for those who have lower cost products. There is a change in how Amazon is billing for a lot of its promotional fees. So more promotional fees are moving to a percent of sales from a fixed fee model. So for instance, coupons now 2.5% of sales versus $60 per coupon. So for lower cost goods, this actually could be really good in the sense that it is actually a lower cost than if your promotion doesn't do a ton of volume. Maybe where some of the fixed fees would have made it tougher to pay for. Now it's a percent of sales. But for those who have higher priced products, this is effectively another area where margin is going to erode a bit in an already tough year. So considering that when we talk about promotional strategy becomes really important, and just want to make sure to bring up the changes that Amazon has imposed. Those go into effect June 1st or 2nd of this year. Obviously a little ways in advance of Prime Day. So I guess that leads me to how do we approach it? And I mentioned this before, but number one seems super obvious, but have a plan. Don't advertise everything. Don't go deeper than you need to where you're negative in margin. Like, have a purpose for the promotions that you're pushing. It is a deal event. I'm sure Joel will talk about it. It's a deal event where you've really got to promote and drive traffic to specific deals. Just make sure those deals have a purpose. So are we trying to acquire new products? Are we trying to, acquire new customers? Are we trying to push new products that need increased adoption? Are we trying to strategically block a competitor from gaining share over that period? Like, what are we doing with our promos becomes really, really important. What about tariffs? This is a tough topic that I know is going to come up. It's like, how are the conversations around tariffs going to impact promotional planning? And the reality is, everybody's going to make their best guess, but what I would say is you can always pull a promotion leading up to the event. It is harder to add them at the last minute, right? So take that with a grain of salt, but I think everybody is going to be wondering what happens when we get to July. How do I plan promotions when I don't know what my costs are going to be? Totally true. So every business is going to have to look at their unique situation, their unique manufacturing locations, their unique competitive advantages or disadvantages in that environment, and make a call. But what I would say is, plan heavy and know you can always back down as you get a little bit closer to the event. The other thing about tariffs that I would say is to remember deal tenants. So in a Prime event, in a tentpole event, Amazon is going to say, depending on deal type, they have to be offering the lowest price inside of 30 or 60 days. So if you're looking at price increases, retail price increases, it really needs to happen more than 60 days out from Prime. Otherwise, your deal might be rejected because it's not the lowest price in the last 60 days. So if you're trying to increase retail prices in June, your Prime discounts, Prime deals would have to be lower than your old price, right? And that's something that we've got to remember when we're thinking about this kind of inverse impact of potential price increases while we're trying to offer deals within a few months time frame. So The question also I'm getting more than ever is, do I have to participate? Like, is there value in participating? Am I just throwing away money? And the one thing that I would say is like, you don't have to participate, but to not participate means to give a huge leg up to your competition during Prime Day. And that's a huge percentage of sales for July. So unless you're in a category where you really command all of the kind of consumer demand out there for your product, and the consumers aren't going to change behavior based on Prime Day, and that they won't substitute with a competitive product, you really do have to participate if you want to maximize your sales opportunity for June and July, as non-participation is giving up valuable space to your competition, who will almost certainly be promoting. That said, sometimes lower sales at a higher margin in the bank at the end of the day is the right choice, and that is the justification for not participating, which I think is totally valid in a lot of cases, especially with the uncertainty that's out there right now. So, I guess from there, I just want to jump into a few areas of other prep, more so than just how are we thinking about it, how are we approaching it. It's like digital merchandising is going to be more important than ever. How your products look, how you convert, it's going to be more expensive to promote. You're obviously paying for the discount, you're paying for marketing. Make sure when people land on your page and you've paid for those page views, make sure that they're likely to convert. So make your brand stand out. Make sure you don't just look like another factory direct product that ends up on Amazon. In most cases, the brands that we're working with are not. And I think making that stand out and obvious to the consumer becomes really, really important, especially as the investment gets higher and higher for events like Prime Day. So the other piece is logistics. We're always surprised at how many folks, especially on the Seller Central side, aren't thinking far enough advance about Prime and what that means for backups at warehouses, check-in times, little things like, hey, if you're having Amazon label your products upon arrival, you really need to be starting to ship Prime products, in the next 3 weeks, because Amazon's going to get backed up. There's going to be delays. There's going to be product that's not available that's usually available within, call it 5 to 14 days. So being way ahead of it's really important. And it's, thankfully we're in Q1 through 3, so storage costs are relatively low in comparison to a Q4 event. So having inventory there early, way better than missing the opportunity. So I think those are my thoughts on where we're headed for Prime, how to plan for it, how to think about it, and just a few areas of the business to be planning for. But I think the bulk of the effort around Prime does go to marketing, and I'm going to turn it over to Joel and let you take it from here, Joel.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so setting the marketing strategy. The first thing to really emphasize here, and Chris touched on it earlier, is this is a deal event. There's sales that occur every day on Amazon. There's marketing that occurs every day on Amazon. But in terms of setting the strategy around Prime Day itself, the first question you have to ask yourself is, are you prepared to lean in with a deal? That's what shoppers expect during the event, and it's also what the other brands are geared up for and are bidding aggressively to gain placement. So Prime Day is one of those time periods on Amazon where it gets very expensive to try to garner a larger share of traffic. And if you've got a deal that aligns with shopper expectation, then by all means lean in. If you don't, it might be a situation where, as Chris mentioned, it's potentially something where you sit it out, as opposed to spending aggressively on marketing to push a deal that might not be sizable enough to have a large enough impact for the business. The next thing is, being mindful of Amazon and how they direct traffic on the event. The Prime eligible deals, they get the badging. That's really what Amazon funnels the traffic to. So yes, those deals are costly, but at the same time, that's where the majority of the traffic flows to during the event. There's ways around it in terms of leveraging sponsored ad strategy to still get some good placement. But when you're deciding what deal type you want to leverage, just know that what comes with that Prime badging is really kind of being where the traffic is being directed. And if your promotions don't qualify for that badging, then it creates a situation where driving traffic via ad strategy becomes even that much more important. The next thing is choosing the ASINs that you want to lead with. Really. With it being a deal event and there being a large influx of new to brand shoppers, the ASINs that historically do a good job of helping you drive new customer acquisition are really the ones where you should likely focus. Oftentimes, those are lower cost items, those are high conversion items, they're kind of entry point or smaller pack size ASINs, and that also brings with it the opportunity to discount sufficiently to gain that Prime Day badging at a lower cost with less margin impact. So while it doesn't drive as large a top line sales during the event, it helps you cost effectively acquire new to brand customers. And really that lens is one of the most successful ways to look at Prime Day and walk away, with a well executed strategy. The next thing is, how broad your focus is in terms of SKU count. Is it something where you need to put the entire line of product on sale, or do you want to be more strategic in terms of choosing the right, let's say, child ASIN or variant, child variant of a product to use as kind of a traffic driver, knowing that some percentage of shoppers will jump off to other products. The smaller the SKU count, obviously, the lower the cost. But if you choose SKUs that are part of larger variations, it helps you drive traffic to a broader set of assortment. And then last but not least, having promos and coupons live a week prior to the event. So as the event nears, very active Amazon Prime shoppers will frequently drive up search volume on the site as they research things that they need, things that they want, their wish list, etc., as they try to kind of zero in on what they want to be shopping for on the day of the event. And that influx of traffic leads to a nice opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door with those shoppers prior to the actual deal event, when obviously there's a lot more noise going on. Next slide. All right, so preparing to scale during the event. As I mentioned earlier, focusing on new customer acquisition is a key. And really, what we've seen leveraging Amazon Marketing Cloud is the top of search, the top of the first page of search results. That's where the majority of the new to brand customer acquisition resides. There's lots of different ad placements across detail pages, below the fold, all those sorts of things. But if we look at the number one way to reach new to brand shoppers, especially in a very kind of busy deal environment, that only points even more so towards top of search placement as being key. Amazon has rolled out a few different features and functionality to help savvy advertisers to focus more attention on top of search. On the sponsored side of things, there's top of search bid modifiers, so you can bid more modestly, but then apply a very, very aggressive multiplier to focus your attention on top of search placement. It's something we would highly recommend for the deal event. And then on the sponsored brand side of things, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do it with a bid modifier, but there's also a relatively new ability to bid on a cost per impression basis. So where it may cost you $4 or $5, on an event date like that, might even be larger for a larger ticket item keyword. Instead, you can bid on a cost per 1,000 impression basis. And so if the term is highly relevant, if the audience is highly engaged and likely to purchase, which obviously they would be on the event, you're effectively buying in bulk. So it gives you an opportunity to, generally at a much higher bid, but you get a bulk kind of purchase of impressions. And that can lead to not only more top of search placement, because that's really what this bidding type is geared towards, but also ultimately a more efficient cost structure for you. Next slide. All right, so budget, especially in tough times or changing market conditions, I would say, budget is finite. And so, making sure that that budget is focused in the right way is key. And really what that means is, today you've probably got the majority of your assortment supported with ads. And, not all those things are going to be on deal. So as the deal event approaches, being willing to pause portions of your assortment and campaigns within your overall campaign structure that don't align with the deal. It's hard to do, knowing that there's a lot of traffic on the site that's coming in. But the most important thing is being mindful of the fact that those shoppers are coming into the site. They're looking specifically for deals. There's lots of things they can see on the page, but they're looking specifically for deals. Your costs are going to go up. There's going to be more advertisers in the auction. And so therefore you need to be really diligent and focused on fully supporting and aggressively supporting the campaigns that are aligned with your deals for the day, and being willing to pause assortment that doesn't align with those deals. It seems like a small thing, but it's an incredibly large element of making sure that you're successful on Prime Day. The next thing I would say is, Amazon has rolled out some different capabilities within the ad console to help you schedule budget increases on campaigns, to help you schedule more aggressiveness in terms of bids for events like this. They want to, help facilitate there being a feeding frenzy, if you will, of advertising spend. Similarly, there's external tools that tap into Amazon advertising via API, things like PackView that add even additional capabilities to help you really kind of scale up and ramp things up on the day of. Those are all capabilities that we fully support or recommend leveraging during the event. And it's all built around focusing your budget on your deals, and then the campaigns where those deals are supported, making sure that you're dialing up budgets and bids and leaning in and helping that portion of your ad strategy really scale on the day of the event, while the other portions that don't align to the deals, either have a much reduced scale or maybe even paused for a day or two. Next, the best offense is a great defense. I'm sure you've all heard that before. What that really means is there is still going to be shoppers that are turning to the site on the day of the event that are searching for your branded terms. There is, of course, going to be a lot of shoppers on the detail pages of your Prime Day deals, both organic traffic as well as paid traffic from the strategies we just described. And being mindful of the fact that, especially if you have broad distribution, shoppers on your branded terms, you might be pleasantly surprised the extent to which they represent new to brand shoppers. If you're in brick and mortar and there's low inventory or a lack of matching promotions, you'll have shoppers that may come to Amazon on the day of the event that don't normally shop there, but they're there for deals, and they're there looking for the brands that they know and love. That they may buy elsewhere. And so it represents an opportunity to capture and strengthen that relationship with that shopper. And also it represents an opportunity to cross-sell other deals that you have on the day of, or even non-deal assortment on the detail pages of your Prime Day deals. So that once you spend to drive a bunch of traffic there, both in terms of funding of the deal as well as of the ad spend, making sure that your brand stays front and center to that shopper, and that you're occupying the ad placements on those detail pages to make sure that you get maximum exposure with those shoppers. The next thing I would say is, Amazon Marketing Cloud. It's been around for a few years. It's gone through some different iterations. It's now much more widely available. We can help brands, really large and small, as long as you're active on Amazon sponsored ads. There is no longer a requirement to be active on Amazon DSP. We can help you tap into that information, and it allows us to do a lot of very nuanced targeting. Both across sponsored ads as well as Amazon DSP, and specifically the ability to target new to brand shoppers that have recently purchased your brand for the first time, that have not yet made a repeat purchase. If that type of buying situation aligns with the assortment that you have, We have the ability to target those shoppers more aggressively, increase bids specifically for shoppers that are new to brand that have not yet made a new recurring purchase. So we can do things like that to drive increased loyalty and find some additional value from the event. And then the other thing I would say is, making sure that your existing audience, your existing shopper base, knows to basically look for you first and foremost. There is things like the ability to send out a hidden promo code to your customer base in advance of the event, so that if you feel that they're likely to be on the site looking at deals on Prime Day, maybe they now have an additional incentive to start their search specific to your brand, and benefit from a specific deal or offer that you've provided to them. Last but not least, maximizing scale. So, as I touched on earlier, adjusting bids and budget on existing campaigns is key. And the real thing I want to emphasize there is existing campaigns. So the ability to scale up existing campaigns that have data and history is much greater than the ability to scale up a net new campaign on the day of or even the day before. So you'll want to make sure that you adjust your existing campaigns to scale on the day of the event, and really try to avoid creating net new campaigns, especially if it differs from your overall strategy. One thing that's also helpful to do in regards to that is keep documentation of how you had your campaign structured previously, so that post-event you can revert back to your original kind of tried and true strategy in terms of the ASINs that are featured, bid structure, that sort of thing, much more easily post-event. Next piece here, leverage Amazon DSP for reach, scale, and nuanced targeting. That last part is really important. Nuanced targeting, the ability to have multiple criteria targeting, but then also be able to scale because you're able to reach that shopper independent of what they might be searching for on the site, or even whether they're on the site right now. So DSP is something where really nuanced targeting and scale, if those align with what your needs are, definitely something to consider leveraging during the event as well. And then also, there's going to be a lot of bids, a lot of noise on the site, and there's other ways to reach Amazon shoppers. So most Amazon Prime shoppers are also Prime Video viewers, and most Prime Video viewers are on there pretty consistently. So there is the ability to target those shoppers based on their search and purchase behavior on Amazon, but now reach them on Prime Video, and reach them with a strong video ad that is non-skippable, that takes up the entirety of their TV screen, that they cannot skip past. They have to consume the entirety of it before they can continue on viewing the content that they were previous. That's a really impactful way to really kind of plant the seed that your brand should be in consideration when they turn to Amazon.com in a day or two to take advantage of those Prime Day deals. And last but not least, utilize AMC to target past deal event purchasers. So the ability to go back in time and say, I want to target shoppers in my subcategory that were actively purchasing on Prime Day 2024. So you know that they're shoppers of the right product, you know that they lean into this event, and now you can go out and target those shoppers more aggressively, more specifically, both across DSP as well as Amazon sponsored ads. And again, that's available now as part of Amazon Marketing Cloud. And Amazon Marketing Cloud last year was only available to brands that were actively leveraging Amazon DSP. So it's not necessarily new, but it's something that is now applicable to all and really available to all, where it wasn't necessarily in the past. All right, post-event strategy. So we've had an amazing Prime Day. Somehow, through all the challenging marketing conditions, we managed to acquire a nice grouping of net new shoppers to our brand. Now what? Now, what are we going to do to make sure that we leverage the full benefit of this event? First thing I would say is the sales velocity of your ASINs increased over the event. And you've likely gained some organic search rank, both through your ad strategy as well as through your deal strategy on Prime Day. So you're going to see, likely, a little bit of kind of a rain shadow effect, like Chris talked about, where some of the demand for the immediate week might be soaked up. So you might see not necessarily a continuation of those same sales levels. It might be a little quiet, but you should see an increase in your organic search rank. And so once we get past that kind of soaked up demand period of a week or two, you should see some increased glance views and some nice health to your business as a result of choosing to participate in Prime Day. The other thing that you likely saw is a nice acquisition of net new customers to your brand. So those are shoppers that we can now single out and target specifically to reach with complementary products, or ideally, if it's more of a consumable or a repetitively purchased product, try to reach them with new offers and special offers specifically to them to really lock in that second purchase and get them to be a loyal shopper going forward with your brand. The other thing I would say is, looking back at the event and trying to determine the level of success that you had, there's different ways to do it. My personal favorite, given that it is an event that brings a large percentage of net new shoppers to these brands, not only because of deals lure new shoppers to your brand, but really because a lot of shoppers turn to Amazon on Prime Day and in Q4 during peak for a specific need. Like they're trying to buy gifts, they're trying to find deals, and maybe they're not there day to day for their day in and day out shopping. And so there is a large influx of new to brand shoppers, and going back and looking at the cost with which you were able to acquire new to brand shoppers during that deal event, I think is a really interesting metric because advertising it's expensive, funding promos it's expensive, but if you can cost effectively acquire new shoppers to your brand, it creates some really nice opportunities to remarket to those shoppers, lock them in, make them loyal customers going forward, and grow your brand over time.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. So y'all, I appreciate you joining us here. If you do have questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat in the next 30 seconds or so. We'll hang here to answer questions for a minute. But again, thanks for joining. That'll wrap it up for today.